What's going on, guys? This is Kaishiro. Welcome back. So we are back with another video. On this video, we are going to cover Philippines OCG Metagame tier list in August 2024, week 2, post ROTA. So before, many people have been confused from my second tier list video because they thought it was for the overall metagame of OCG. But short disclaimer before we continue on our video, this tier list was only specified for the metagame in the Philippines in our country. So without further ado, let's start. So we do have S, A, B, C, and D tiers here. We're going to start first on D. So moving on first, we do have Sprite Rankings. So huge props and shoutouts to Kirk, our Kaidovil's friend, and he is the sole reason why Pranked Sprite is even here because he won a major tournament, an online platform tournament called Azrak, Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. It was played on Edo Pro and it is the Battle of the Champions. All of the previous champions of Azrak online tournament are gathered together and he won that tournament with a lot of Tenpai Dragons and he is dubbed as the Tenpai Slayer for that tournament and he definitely won the hearts and attention of most people with his very unique, very unconventional deck list of Sprite Frankids and it proved to be the elements of surprise in Yu-Gi-Oh is still dramatic, no? It can still pull up huge victories if people are not expecting your deck. So yeah, on Sprite Rankings, I think it is still very tactful because people will not expect this deck and also the battler is immense when you can be able to pull it off on the correct scenario or the instance that you definitely win advantages from the destroy effects of battler and also the sprite will be a good engine to extend your plays and also a very good asset to play around hand traps effectively using the engine. Moving on next, we do have Sword Soul Tenyi. So Sword Soul, it is a deck that was very good for the beginners and returnees and also budget players. It is very timeless now considering that it is still able to perform on a very minuscule manner. It can top tournaments even though it is not dominating or really huge in numbers. It is still a decent deck. So people in Philippines are pivoting towards a timeless deck because we are not really rich in a degree that we are going to spend money every meta every 3 months. No, so most of the time we're just going to pick a deck that will be meta relevant and still be able to compete no matter how many times have passed. So Sword Soul is here since 2021 and it is still a decent deck and paired with Protoss it can lock attributes fire, light, dark. Those are very important to mitigate in this current metagame with the Fire King, Snake Eyes, Tenpai Dragon, and Yubel Finsmith. So yeah, moving on next, we do have Heroes Finsmith. So this is also very shocking to me. I am really flabbergasted when I saw a lot of tops of this deck in mainly Visayas region and especially on Bacolod. This has been very prominent and people like Carol Aguirre and other people also in Mindanao are piloting this deck and they are gaining success mainly to the fact that Dark Law Turbo is really existent and relevant. Once you set up your Dark Law, there's not many decks that could play around your board and the Finsmith also enables you to extend your plays going first and also boost the going second prowess of heroes when baiting hand traps and also diminishing the card resources of your opponent. Next, we do have Millennium Exodia Control. So, this has been the new Horus Stun in our country. Many people in the Philippines fancy playing the control gameplay, no? With the stun-oriented gameplay of Exodia Millennium. It can definitely have a pivotal game 1 and also dominate a lot of decks here with the Shifter and Fissure. Those two are really existent and really powerful floodgates to stop these Snake Eyes, Farking, and the likes of Yubel and Mementotlan to stop them from playing the game and also mitigate their graveyard advantages. So I think this deck is very nostalgic as well on feeling because when you win games from the 5 parts of Exodia, it is definitely a fulfilling phenomenon to you. You're like Yugi, and it feels really nice to win that in that occasion. And also, I think it will still continue to perform because it got new support, and also people will definitely not that respect the back row too much, considering that we are very focused on dealing with Tenpai Dragon and Snake Eyes as a meta right now. And next would be Pendulum Magician Z-Arc. So this was being very divided. It is divided between Melodious Engine and also the pure version of Supreme King Magician. So I think it is gearing towards the Melodious because it is more played towards the Philippines environment. But on Japan, Korea, China, the Supreme King Magician as a pure is the more dominant version of the deck. But also in the Philippines, many people have invested on Melodious because it is a very good AE or Asian English deck, and also very timeless as well. Very far from the ban list. It will not get touched from the ban list anytime soon, and also the engine is flexible enough to fit in on certain decks like Snake Eyes and other stuff like Mementotlan and Voices Voice. So yeah, moving on towards the C tier, we do have Centurion. So Centurion in Philippines is pretty much played on pure version. Very different from the Japanese Centurion where they play Finsmith on the deck. So Centurion definitely a deck that you can bank on when you want to play a mid-range deck. Be able to have 15, 12, sometimes 18 rooms for tech cards, floodgates, and hand traps. Additional utility cards that will be able to fit your deck towards the environment that you're playing, and very adaptive as well. Can fit in other engines like Bestial and also White Woods, no? So very innovative deck, and also lots of way to express your deck building strategies for the Centurion. So overall, a very solid deck on C tier. I think it will stay on a very long time here on C tier, but it will not go higher on my own perspective if people will not adapt the Centurion Finsmith, which is very, very more powerful and more consistent than the pure version. Next, we do have Unchained Finsmith. So, this deck is ravaging people in Visayas. And I think this deck is heavily represented on a lot of local tournaments and non-official tournaments. I think this deck is really a pet peeve or a peeve of most underground players or non-official players in the country. I think it is a deck that dwells down on the ranks of the other Finsmith decks, but a very solid option. Can be able to utilize the Finsmith very well with the Finsmith and Fin Monster synergy, and also explosive going first, and can be really dangerous going second with a lots of linking away from the Blue Dog of Unchained and also the popping effects from the Sharvara and also the traps. It is really strong when going second, and if you don't know how to choke the deck and you don't know the choke points, where to hand trap and also where to interrupt, I think you will be put in a very bad matchup against this deck if you didn't study the matchup really well. And next would be Chimera Finsmith. So this deck is a deck for Filipino people. I believe this deck was a signature deck of many people in the Philippines. Really talented and skilled players are getting free wins everywhere on this deck. They are really banking on the unconventional aspect of Chimera Finsmith because many people are focused on Snake Eyes and Farking and even Nubel Finsmith, but they opt to neglect the Chimera as a deck because it is inferior in terms of representations and usage in the format and also on the tier list in major regions. But in Philippines, it is a different story, a different ball game for this Chimera Finsmith. It can definitely top huge tournaments, top 4, top 8, and even finalists of huge tournaments from what we have seen on a lot of tournaments in Gapo and also in Bataan and also on the previous big events from Anan Keep It with this Chimera Finsmith. So really exceptional deck in the Philippines format. It definitely fits in on a very wide, vast environment of meta in our country where this deck can adapt and also play around a lot of boards and stuff happening on the meta. And next would be Labyrinth. So this deck was really a solid investment. It is still viable since 2021 or 2022, if I'm not mistaken, no? So you probably have cashed back from investing on this deck for a very long time now because it is staying on the format. No matter what happens, it is still going to adapt. You can fit in different floodgates and different trap cards to suit your deck list towards the environment that you are going to play against, and also be able to use engines like Unchained Finsmith to boost the ceiling and resiliency of Labyrinth. So overall, very solid deck in our country. I think the only reason why it is on C tier is because people are not really rich enough to invest on the core of Labyrinth, which is very expensive on its own. And next would be Voices Voice. So this deck is not performing at the highest level in my own books. Even though this deck is really represented, I think they don't get enough too much tops on my viewing. I believe this deck is second, if not the most played deck in our country after the Tenpai Dragon. But on the other hand, it is not topping efficiently and consistently. I believe it you want if you want to rank Voices Voice higher on this tier list, I think they should have stepped up the game of the top cut representations and also the win rate ratio of Voices Voice in our country. But sadly, it only falls down on C tier. But I believe it is still a solid deck, very safe deck, no? Can be able to play around Maxi and Fuaros extremely well and be able to set up a recognizable board going first with Sauravis and Skull Guardian. Next, moving towards the B tier, we do have Mementotlan. So this deck is also really performing extremely well on online tournaments and also on our locals. I think Mementotlan is a very decent deck. I think people definitely underrate the deck too much. If people doesn't know how to interact with the Mementotlan, I guarantee you they will struggle 100% against the deck and they will be getting overwhelmed from the multitudes of effects and interruptions and combos of Mementotlan. And I have been experiencing it myself when I have thought that the deck is not that really strong, no? On paper, this deck looks very solid and very much appreciated. But when you go head on against this deck and you lack the preparation, I think you will definitely lose against this deck. And I have experienced it on my online testings. And yeah, moving forward, I think Mementotlan will still be able to compete on the format, even though they are not going to the lengths of A tier or S tier. Nothing too crazy about that, but it is still a decent deck and a very safe option if you want to play around the ban list, of course, this coming September. Next would be Yubel Finsmith. So the biggest loser in the post ROTA format. They have fallen from the throne of being the best deck because pre ROTA they are arguably no contest the best deck in the format, but things have changed drastically, abruptly, and too quickly. No, people have invested too much money on Phantom of Yubel, worth of loads of money already, groceries in a single week, but they now have resorted towards the B tier on my own assumption because I think it's not only on my assumption because on the major regions tier list also this deck fell hard on the succeeding tier list post Rota, but on the lighter side it could potentially just slightly dodge the ban list this coming September, and this deck will continue to perform in the following format on October. So a glimmer of hope for the people who have invested money. Imagine investing too much money on Newbel and thinking that you're going to have the best deck in 2, 3, 4, 5 months in time, but suddenly a set came out and buffed the Snake Eyes as a Mina and Tenpai Dragon. So it's really regretful, and I think it's not a good feeling for them. But on the contrary, they can be able to survive the ban list at two, a thing or two this coming September. So yeah, moving forward, we do have Rescue Ace as a Mina Finsmith. So this deck is also underrated in the Philippines metagame. people don't really play it too much. I don't really see huge numbers and uptakes of this deck in our environment, but I think this deck is definitely a deck that can convert a lot of winning percentage on Top Cut and also huge events. We now have seen the WCQ Asia Finals, Japan Championship, 2024 Chinese City Tournament, and also the Yu-Gi-Oh! Area Championship in Japan. Those tournaments always have Rescue Ace in their top 4 or top 8. So it is a very evident deck and possibly one of the stronger decks when we gauge towards the format with Azamina and of course Finsmith getting the Lacrimosa. So yeah, moving forward, on the 8 tier we do have Runic. So Runic will not go anywhere. It is here to stay. If the ban list will not touch the Runic tip and they don't limit all the floodgates or ban it no entirely, I think Runic will still be able to compete just like Master Duel. No matter how they do against the floodgates, no matter what floodgate they hit, people will still innovate Runic and play it on a control, stun, and ridiculous way of floodgating and counter trapping the opponent from this plethora of trap cards and floodgates that are in the game, no? Even though you hit goes in match, there can be only one rivalry. There's always the next floodgate to step up, like Forcing Stone and yeah, the likes of other floodgates like Fissure, no? So it is really unprecedented that Runic will be able to adapt and always integrate with the format no matter what happens if Konami will not answer the correct issue against the deck. So if you are looking for a deck that will give you instant wins and also really good matchup against the format, I think Runic is the best deck for you. Next would be Fire King, Sinful Spoils, Azamina, Finsmith with Snake Eyes, 5 engines in a single deck. Oh my god. Yu-Gi-Oh have gone too far already. I have lost breath from saying those 4, 5 engines, so it's ridiculous. But it is what it is right now. So people will still definitely expect Snake Eyes to be the superior version of the deck. The only struggle that the Fire King have on their arsenal was themselves, the Fire King engine itself, the bricks from the Garunix, the Phonics, and also the other cards of Fire King can be lackluster compared to the one card setup of Snake Eyes and Azamina and Finsmith. It definitely falls behind in the consistency department. But in terms of resiliency and explosiveness, I think the Sparking does have a severe advantage over that, and also very tactful as well to be able to play around hand traps and dodge targeting effects, and also can be able to play around more floodgates themselves because they can float around skill drain, and probably there can be only one and summon limit, no? You have a lot of high bodies and high attack bodies and multitudes of monster that can beat down the opponent and control the match as per se. And next would be Snake Eyes, Finsmith Azamina. Arguably the deck with the most healing, the highest healing out of all these decks, and the most explosive one, the complete package. This is what modern Yu-Gi-Oh looks like right now. This is the epitome of the modern deck in 2024. Bunch of hand traps, be able to play 15 hand traps with Fuaros, Maxi, Ash, Imperm, Veiler. All of those are existent on the deck. Even the likes of Droll and Nibiru are present and have 9, 12 one card combos. So it's ridiculous and still be able to put up 2 Omni Negates and possibly pop and also banish and also another 4 negates from Apollousa. It's really ridiculous. This deck is way above our imagination right now. If you don't draw the correct hand traps, you will get steamrolled every time against this deck. You probably need 3, 4 hand traps to stop this from playing. And moving forward on our S tier, the only deck that can do that in normal basis are Tenpai Dragon themselves. That's why they are the S tier in our tier list. But ceiling wise, I think Snake Eyes definitely has that department. But in terms of affordability, accessibility, and overall usage and representations in this current meta, the kings of the format will be none other than Tenpai Dragon. They are the sole S tier, and they are here to stay if the Banis will not touch the Chundra or the Sangen Kaimen moving forward. But now, Tenpai Dragon is the most used deck in our country. There's no debate. I think you could definitely see it from OTS, official tournament stores, Top Cut, Reps, and also the local tournaments from big locals and shops in the country. I think Tenpai Dragon absolutely demolishes the whole metagame scene, and there's no contest above them. I think you could definitely cheese out wins from Tenpai Dragon from here and there, from Rogue decks or stand decks, no? And of course, Snake Eyes, Farking, Rescue Ace, Runic, Cubel, and probably Mementotlan does have a very solid chance against them. But when we count the numbers of Tenpai Dragon, it's no contest. It's not even a debate. I think Tenpai Dragon definitely is the most rep deck in 3-4 months already. So yeah, that sums up our Philippines OCG Metagame tier list post ROTA in August 2024 week 2. So if you found this video informative and helpful, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It definitely motivates me a lot to keep going and provide this content for you guys. So once again, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.